we were struggling in our marriage, and an amazing couple from our church, who Lindsay was doing some volunteer work in
Hmm.
Life Church here in Rogers, Arkansas.
Okay.
And Miss K is very close with Debbie Stroman, and she
Cool.
was talking with Lindsay and said, "You guys should give this a try." I
Mm.
believe that's how that
Yeah.
conversation went. And
Mhm.
it was, Brian, it was one of those God things where I was completely against it. I was
Mm.
um, had no interest at all.
Yeah.
Lindsay was fighting uh, with all of her might for our
Yeah.
marriage, and I had all but just like given up on everything.
Mm.
Okay.
Um, so she actually scheduled our what that little 1 hour phone
The
call
phone call,
before.
yeah.
Yep. The
So
screening call
Lindsay,
beforehand.
real quick, where did you hear about the mediation? It was from the person at your church? I
From
mean,
the
she
Hague.
told
That's
you.
right.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So thank you, Kay. Gotcha.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you,
exactly.
Kay, for sure.
Mhm.
Shout out to Kay.
And so you were dragged kicking and screaming. You didn't even
I
know
was.
about it. So Lindsay
Yeah.
says, I'm going to throw out a Hail Mary. She's praying about it. She schedules it and thinks, okay, now how do I tell? So how did that conversation go, Lindsay? How did you tell your husband that he was going to a mediation?
Well, we were probably 2 weeks into complete silence in the house, and I was
Wow. Yeah.
like, "Hey," I think I called him at work one day and said, "Hey, I scheduled a Zoom call. If you'll hop on it, we're gonna do some mediation. If you'll
That's
join."
awesome.
Exactly.
And so he reluctantly
So
joined the call.
at the time you had been married, what, 6.5, 7 years?
Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
right? Okay. And so, and you said you'd been struggling. How long had you been struggling to get to the point where it was like hardly even speaking,
Mm.
Lindsay knows us
where
better.
you'd just withdrawn? Yeah. Yeah.
This is the record of wrongs.
Yeah.
Um,
I asked you, you weren't keeping a record. Now you're having to go search. You'd already burned this, right?
yeah. We struggled probably our first 4 years pretty heavily.
Hmm.
And then that was 22. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, Pretty heavily our first 4 years. We had some good times, but pretty heavily struggled in the
Mhm.
very beginning. I mean, I guess for years. Kind of
Hmm.
just kept
Hmm.
stuff in the dark that needed to be brought to light, but we just kept
Yeah.
stuffing it, and it finally
Mm.
was brought to a head, and it was needed.
Yeah.
Um, so
And
yeah.
we joke about like a Hail Mary, but truly, and this is what I think so many couples, it catches them by surprise. So when I do premarital counseling with couples, I tell them all the time, don't be surprised if you think, people hear sometimes,
Mm,
oh, the first year's the toughest year. Man, if the first year is toughest, then that means 2 and 3 and 4, they're going to be tough. It's like, and sometimes you think right off the bat, like, oh crap, I've made a mistake. You've
Yeah.
heard our story. It's like, man, I've made the wrong person. Like, what is this? And you lose hope and you start to think, man, we can't fix this. And
mm,
and it's devastating. And the last thing you really want to do is like talk about that. And so it's
Right.
hard to reach out. So many times we just kind of suffer silently because of
mhm.
kind of shame. You don't want to admit maybe to yourself or to anyone else that we made a mistake.